Hi, everybody. Welcome to Plug Into PA and Colin's Corner and many other groups. I've got a very special guest here today. His name is Bill Goodman. And before we get into the real sharp business and the main event that we want to talk about, Bill, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 75. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I'm a certified public accountant by profession. I run knife shows. I'm very much involved in managing and participating in gun shows and hunting and so on.
Okay, so you mentioned sort of CPA.
Yes.
How many years were you a CPA? And I don't believe you're 75. Okay, you don't look 75. You must have used one of those knives that we're going to talk about later to shave off all your hair like I do.
Right. And I don't keep the barbers very busy.
Okay. But how many years were you a CPA?
I started in public accounting in 1963, and then I took the examination for the certified public accounting in, I have to think, 66, I think it was. And I got my certificate in 67, and I've been a CPA ever since.
Congratulations. I know that's a hard thing to do. So what are we here mainly for today, and what do you have to say about it?
Well, all my life I've enjoyed knives, and I just got more and more deeply involved with them since I was a little kid. Even when I was a Cub Scout, I got my first pocket knife. And I've always attended knife shows. I've participated in knife clubs. I go to lots of gun shows almost every weekend. And a lot of my friends who are in the business have been looking for more knife shows. And I was, and still am, a charter member of the Eastern Pennsylvania Knife Collectors Association, which began a fall knife show, generally in September, around 1988, I think it was, mid-'80s. And it ran shows for about 30-some years, and then it has dissipated. And I said, well, if the club decided to drop I correct myself, it was the spring.
Right.
If this club decided to drop the spring show, I would be willing to put on a spring show. However, I want to step back. I forgot. About 12 years ago, I said to the club, we really should have a show in the fall. Many of the knife vendors have asked for that. The collectors have asked for it. So I began a show in the fall. It began small. It's grown to be quite big. And then last fall, the organization said, you should really take over the spring. So here I am running a similar show in the spring and the fall.
Wow, 2 shows right now. And this is what annual?
Well, this is the first show I ran in the spring, but I think this is the 13th year for the fall show.
Okay. And this is happening April 21st, April 22nd, this coming weekend.
Yes.
And then in the fall, when is it happening?
September 29 and September 30, 2018.
Okay. Give us a little preview of the show. I hear there's all kinds of different types of knives there.
Correct.
We're talking in the artistical and even the antique sense.
Yes.
And in knives being utilized, right, in the kitchen and outdoorsmen.
Yes.
You're an outdoorsman?
I tend to favor the hunting knives, whether it be large knives or folders or trappers or pocket knives. But many people there collect military knives used in the various wars and combat. Some collect fighting knives. I have some of all of those, but I don't necessarily use them. Some people prefer high-end artistic knives. One of the vendors specialized in gaucho knives, which I never even heard about until last year, used by the cowboys of Argentina. Many people have very beautiful knives. Some of them have artistic knives worth thousands of dollars. Investment knives that you would never use with beautiful jewelry. They're generally jewelry with a blade. They are gorgeous, gorgeous handles, gorgeous steel, very high quality steel. Some is Damascus steel, which is a blend of many layers of steel, folded and welded, sometimes 512 layers of steel in one knife.
Great, great. Now, do you happen to have one on you, Bill?
Well, I don't have any fancy ones, but I have one I like to carry. It's a small folder.
The old pocket knife.
Yeah, this is actually not a pocket knife. It's
that's a beauty.
A small utilitarian folding hunter. This one happens to be made by Ontario Knives. It's known as the rat knife. It was designed by a fellow who runs a military training camp in Ecuador, I think it is. It's
Beautiful
a
handle.
Mark I.
What's the handle made of?
It's nothing special. It's called G10, which is a fiberglass embedded with a resin. Not a particularly gorgeous knife, but an inexpensive knife. They sell for about $40.
Right.
Whereas I have other knives that sell for many hundreds.
That's beautiful. So, but of course, when they go to the show, they're going to see so many different
Yes.
kinds of knives.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, military, gardening, kitchen, you name it, factory custom, with all that stuff. Now, how does
Well, let me point
also at the
out-
preview, there's going to be a demonstration, right?
Yes.
There'll be knife throwing and
Yes.
stuff, but
well,
safe.
We have had
safety.
knife throwers. In fact, we had the world champion knife thrower there a few years ago. I don't know if he'll be there this time or not. He won't be a vendor, but he set up a throwing setup so he could demonstrate his throwing. He was the world champion. And he invited young kids under supervision to throw their knives at targets, which is a fun sport, often done in backyards with targets against tree trunks, and take special balanced knives. You wouldn't want to fold a fine quality knife or a folder that's specially designed for throwing.
No, not at all.
There will be forging. I mentioned Damascus. Some people make their own steel by heating up a combination of alloys or just plain steel, carbon steel, in a forge, generally run by gas or coal, and they hammer the steel on an anvil, and they shape the steel into the shape of a blade, and eventually it's actually harder than a regular knife. And then they eventually finish it off, put a nice handle on it. And that will be demonstrated, especially by Dasarino Forge, which is from Maryland. And in fact, if we have any TV crews there, he's going to make a knife for the TV station to demonstrate.
That's really great. Now, just before we sign off, one more thing that's most important. Where do people get information about this? Where do they go? And like, for instance, is it too late? Can you still bring in some vendors?
Yes.
And so, well, of course, for September too, as well. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So where do they go for that?
Well, first of all, we have a website, www.paknifeshow.com. PA for Pennsylvania Knifeshow.com. They can go to the show, which is at the Charleston Community Center of Palmer Township, 4100 Green Pond Road, Easton. It's easiest access off of Bethman Road from William Penn Highway. You can see the building along US 22 between 25th Street and Route 33.
That's great. And before we sign off, and do people have to look sharp coming to this, Bill?
I think the typical dress will be blue jeans.
Okay, great. It's nice talking to you. We'll follow this up with a fall interview as well. And I'll be there on Sunday taking
Great.
pictures and more exposure. And like I said, it was a pleasure talking to you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.